Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Dr. Shealy, are you blessed?
I am blessed. Yay.
I'm looking forward to coming out your way today, late in the afternoon, possibly, or tomorrow and the next day. You know, I had an interesting thing happen to me. I got under as you know, we have a lift that can put a vehicle up in the air here at the farm. And I was underneath our truck. We have a 2004 Chevy standard length bed pickup truck, standard cabs, 8-foot bed. I was under there and I was looking at the rust, and I'm like, smoke is coming out of my ears. I'm so angry with, the way GM failed to prepare this truck. Yeah. So I'm looking at the rust, and I'm thinking, boy, the rocker panels are rusting, the bed box is rusting over the wheels, and what they did was they took out the fender liners. They improved the weight of the truck by taking out the plastic fender liners that prevented rust from occurring quickly on the wheel wells, and then they put the brake lines where they could get, and the fuel lines, these metal steel fuel lines where they could get rusted. And so they're rusting through. And I looked on the internet, and sure enough, General Motors was adept enough to avoid a massive, massive recall because of the rusting brake lines. And what happens is these lines will just rust through, and if you have a panic stop and you hit the brake quickly, you apply extra pressure within these brake lines of the hydraulic brake fluid, and they leak, and you can have a brake failure, and you can crash. And so there's thousands and thousands and thousands of these vehicles on the road with rusted brake lines. So I saw this, and to do a preventive procedure, my son and I replaced, the rusted brake line. And I had to do that before I could drive to Springfield to come see you. So the car's been on the lift, or the truck has been on the lift for several days, because there's another problem, and that is getting people who are knowledgeable in the auto parts business to be able to sell you the right parts with the right fittings to replace something as common as a Chevrolet truck brake line. So I'm looking forward. I think I've got it fixed, and I'm going to test it and swing out your way today, tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to participating in that experience with the scalar study. So I just want to let you know. That's
wonderful. I'm here.
So, yeah. I'll just. What time do you close, Dr. Shealy?
Well, pretty much at 5:00.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was wondering. Okay, 5:00. Very good. I got an email from you, Dr. Shealy, that was absolutely alarming, and it was titled "First Draft." And the title of your post says, class, this is absolutely alarming. Residents spend more time on computer than with patients. Would you like to share with us what that's all about?
Well, Vince, it's part of the sense that is going on with dumb phones and everything else. As you know, it's been mandated that I keep hearing other things going on. That happened last week, too. Are you with me, Vince?
Yes, I'm with you. I don't hear them at my end, Dr. Shealy.
Okay. At any rate, we are. If you're in the system, you are forced to computerize your records. So, just as with dumb phones, doctors, not just residents. This is just the first study with residents. But they spend all their time trying to get the stuff on the computer instead of talking to the patient. So it's the most antisocial thing that's ever been invented, in my opinion, is to be typing on a computer when you're trying to be talking to someone, whether it's a phone or anything else. It's ridiculous, but it's what happens. And, of course, the system, blank, 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 blank system, allows a physician 7 minutes with a patient. Now, since the beginning of my career as a physician, with a new patient, I need an hour. And with a perm patient, I need 30 minutes. And I don't spend any of that time on a computer. I make handwritten notes, which I can interpret and dictate anytime I wish.
Yeah. And I can tell you, Dr. Shealy, that I have had firsthand experience watching a medical practitioner who was filling in for a doctor. This would be a nurse practitioner. Look at the patient, ask the patient questions, and then type into WebMD questions to try to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
Many, many times. Now I can understand that, and I've also seen a medical doctor in Virginia wear his white lab coat and talk to the patient, and then pull out this little pocket medical dictionary, maybe, or a medical encyclopedia, ask the patient questions, and then flip to the correct page that he wanted, and then make the diagnosis based on what he just read. Now, I'm very serious.
I know you are. I'm only laughing at the fact that not infrequently I do have to look up what bizarre drug a person is taking so I can know just how much of their symptoms are due to complications from the drugs.
That's true. That is absolutely understandable because there are so many new drugs and there's so many complications with the interactions. Absolutely. But I'm talking about, a patient saying, I have these symptoms, I've got this itchy stuff, I've got these little bumps on my skin, and I'm really itchy. And then the medical doctor looks that up. Now,
yeah,
I remember my dad had a medical doctor in Virginia. He was about 80 plus years old. And he had in his office he must have had this office for 30 plus years. And his desk was at the end of the hall, and he could see the waiting room from his desk. And what he would do is when the patient was called in, he would watch the patient from his chair at his desk walk down the hallway. And those 30 seconds of travel time from the waiting room in this, well-lit hallway was part of his diagnosis or his procedure for a diagnosis to tell some of the symptoms that the patient had without the patient saying a word.
Right. Well, of course, that's good physical diagnosis.
But is that done today? No, because the patient is brought into the room prior to the doctor ever seeing the patient for those 7 minutes, and the patient is already seated, and the doctor doesn't get a chance to see that motion, the arms, the legs, the tilt of the head, the gait, and those things.
Right. Well, even when I've seen that, I sometimes take the patient over to the door and have them walk all the way down the hall and back to get a more accurate picture, because that is part of complete diagnosis.
Dr. Shealy, I would venture an educated guess that happens very, very infrequently.
I know.
Maybe at the most 5 to 10% of the time. And class, as you're listening to this, think about the last 10 times that you've been to the doctor. I'd be willing to suggest that you haven't gone for a walk with your doctor, or he hasn't seen you walk, unless there's special circumstances.
Well,
so, Dr. Shealy, go ahead.
Well, again, even when I was in medical school, my professor of medicine, I remember once said, I am amazed at people who have ears and hear not, and eyes and see not. And, I mean, that was 60-plus years ago. So you do have to look. You have to feel. And interestingly, one of the things that I do more often than any doctor I know is have them lie on their tummy to feel the sacrum, because about 15 to 20% of the patients who come in to see me have a rotated sacrum. And no other MD that I know of even knows what that means.
Well, would you share with us in our class what that means to have a rotated sacrum?
It is called a sacral shear. Now, it is an osteopathic diagnosis, and I learned it 35 years ago because I had one. And once you've had one, I had to find out about it, and I now treat it. It's very easy to treat, but I've seen, I'm sure, a couple of hundred people who've been seen by multiple chiropractors who don't know how to make the diagnosis. And the only people who make the diagnosis that I know of other than me are osteopathic physicians, DOs, who still do OMT, or osteopathic manipulative therapy. And that's not more than 5 or 10% of DOs.
Dr. Shealy, when looking for a doctor, what would you recommend a person pay attention to? So a person wants to find a new doctor. What do they look at? Do they call friends? What do we do? I mean, if we're not in the Springfield village, because we know what to do.
In my opinion, there are two things you can do. First of all, look on the internet and see holistic physicians in your general area. If you're in a big city, that you just do that, or your general area of the state. Otherwise, you can have a phone or even Skype consultation with me, and I do that. I've got one coming up very soon in London, and world.
Let me see if I've got this right. You have a patient coming up in London, and you're going to be able to meet with that patient via Skype?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So when we come back, would you tell us how we would arrange that to have that type of a consultation with you? Because our listeners to this broadcast are worldwide, and our instructors are worldwide. So I think that's great. We'll be right back with Dr. Norman Shealy. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. He's with us on Wednesdays, 2 hours every Wednesday. And we broadcast live from 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. And if you would like to talk with Dr. Shealy right here at USA Prepares, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. And if you'd like to take us with you, there's a listen line, 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. That's up 24/7. Dr. Shealy, you had mentioned Skype, and we have students in our class and instructors in our class worldwide. If one wants to have a consultation with you via telephone or via Skype, what would that person do?
Well, they have to schedule it so we can work it into, especially, because of time zone changes, so we can work it into my schedule. In general, most of my new patient schedules are done on Monday or Tuesday, but occasionally I can do Wednesday or Friday. And they have to get in touch with my office. Now, if they don't want to do that by phone, they could just send me an email and we can work it out that way, norm@normshealy.com. Or if they want to talk to my secretary and work around the schedule that way, it's 1-417-355-2551.
Okay, class, let me repeat that. So if you'd like to contact Dr. Shealy via email, that's norm@normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. And the telephone number for his office during normal business hours, 417-355-2551. And that's in Springfield, Missouri.
5221. I always get it wrong.
I'm sorry, what was that? 5221. Okay, so that's 417-355-2551. 5221. Repeat, 417-355-5221. Okay, that's great, Dr. Shealy. So just as simple as an email to Dr. Shealy or call his office and schedule an appointment. And he said that Mondays and Tuesdays are typically the best days for new patients, and possibly you could be worked in on a Wednesday. So there you have it. That's Dr. Norman Shealy. Dr. Shealy, I received a very interesting email from one of our instructors. His name is Bruce Kay. He's been on the air with us, and he's an electrical engineer. He's got some patents, and he's a really bright guy. I like him a lot. And he said that he sent me this email, and it said 3 words you must remember. 3 words you must remember, and I'll tell you what those words are. And I think he's absolutely right. And those words are life reverses entropy. And class, if you want to think about entropy, what you can do is leave your dog at home for a couple of days alone. When you come back, you might find the sofa has a couple holes in it. The stuffing is spread all around. He might find a couple rolls of toilet paper and shred them, right? He might go looking for things because where's mom, where's dad, where'd everybody go? So that kind of indicates what entropy is, going toward, away from organization and going toward chaos. And so this article says that life reverses entropy. Entropy is a physics term which, with sometimes complex definitions, it's the nature of all inanimate things, rocks, water, air, and so on. These all wind down and wear out eventually. Given enough millennia, the winds and the rains will wear down the mountains. Given a few billion years, the sun itself will wear out and collapse, ending our winds and rains with it. Entropy breaks up concentrations of things. It spreads them out until they are dispersed, and everything is a huge, neutral, homogeneous mass, a useless mass. All inanimate things eventually wind down and wear out by themselves. They remain tied to entropy. Living things, on the other hand, reverse entropy. A fruit tree, for example, takes gases from the atmosphere, light from the sun, minerals from the water, and then it organizes them, concentrates them, harmonizes them, and produces apples, oranges, etc. Can we talk about that when we come back, Dr. Shealy?
Absolutely.
Dr. Shealy and I are talking about entropy, and I mentioned from this article, and I'll try to post this article on the website, USA Prepares, sometime during the show. A fruit tree, for example, takes in gases from our atmosphere, light from the sun, minerals and water from the ground. Then it organizes, concentrates, and harmonizes them and produces apples and oranges, etc. The same can be said for all living things. All of them take material from entropic, inanimate world and concentrate it, making it useful. This is what life does. Life itself, whatever it may be, is recognized by reversing entropy. Mere matter does not organize itself. Life, on the other hand, continues itself by concentrating, organizing, and productively using mere matter. Plants and animals reverse entropy very effectively. Each, however, is able to reverse entropy in certain ways, but not others. Mankind is the great exception. We can reverse entropy willfully. We choose how we will reverse entropy, and we choose more and newer ways, seemingly without end, or we can evade such choices. And back to those 3 words, life reverses entropy. Dr. Shealy, that all being said, would you say that killing humans willfully would be a sin?
Interestingly, my guide, as you know, I have this angelic guide I talk to, has told me many, many years ago the only sin in the eyes of the universe is murder. And so I have to say, I do consider, and I consider the death penalty murder by whoever does it, and I don't believe in him because of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. And of course, that lends to euthanasia, that lends to suicide, mercy killing, execution by the state, people saying execution by war. I feel very strongly about that. I think it's absolutely wrong to command some young people with the threat of imprisonment, being put in a brig, that if they don't execute those other people on the other team in conflict and war, that
I have to say that I honestly believe that there is a time when we have to go to war, and yet I don't think I personally could go out and shoot people.
Well, if we are attacked, legitimately attacked, not a false flag, but if we are legitimately attacked,
right?
I see the right answer being defend ourselves to victory, to pummeling the enemy that attacked us to the point where they won't do it again. I see that, and I agree with that. And if my family's attacked, I'm going to respond that way.
And that's why I have a gun, a couple of guns.
Yeah. So, Dr. Shealy, we are in total agreement that life is precious, and we're the only ones around, we living things, the only ones around that can take matter and improve on it. I remember being in the field when I first bought 6 cows, a couple decades ago, and we bought 6 cows, and the man who brought them to our farm in Virginia said, it's really nice and peaceful watching cows. He said, I love to watch cows just out there in the field, watching them eat, because they can take grass. They can take grass that's pretty much useless to most life, and they can turn it into something very useful. And that's what we do. We take things that are not useful without combination and make them useful. But also, when we neglect the things that we've built, entropy is the result. Decay is the result. And if you look at pretty much all of the Olympic infrastructure that was built for all of these Olympic events that lay in ruins throughout the world, it just shows that nature is reclaiming what man did because we didn't protect and preserve and maintain the infrastructure that we built. So I guess the point is we need to pay attention to what we're doing, be careful with what we build, be careful how we maintain those things that are important to us, and maintain life, and protect and preserve and defend life.
Well, I honestly, that fits into my basic philosophy, Vince. There is only one purpose from a spiritual point of view in being here, and that is to help others, period. And that means helping people live better. Mm-hmm. And now I want people to understand, when I say that, I think the man or people who put down the carpet in this office are just as important as I am in helping others. In other words, any constructive work is helping other people.
Interesting that you say that. I feel exactly the same way. And we have engineers who work with us at Genesis Communications Network and other networks, and we have the top brass, and we have those of us who are on the front lines. And I want to make sure that our engineers realize that I believe that this broadcast is all of us side by side. For example, without our engineering, without the guys that maintain the computers, the guys that maintain the electronics infrastructure, without the engineer that's with us right now, John is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Without us, without you, Dr. Shealy, we would have nothing.
Exactly.
But it's to me, it's not a hierarchy. To me, it is we're all side by side trying to accomplish the same thing. Right. So, if Dr. Shealy doesn't do his best, if I don't do my best, and if John, our engineer, doesn't do his best, the entire broadcast suffers. And when I talk to our engineers, I thank them. Not every day. Well, yeah, actually, I do thank them every day. But once in a while, I will say, I really appreciate being side by side with you. I really do. And I mean it that way. And class, I think if we look at life that way, I think it might be a little better for most of us. As you said, the man who puts down the carpet, the people who clean the offices, the people who design the infrastructure of the offices. I look at them all with the same import. I really do.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes no sense. You know, let's face it, you are far more self-sufficient than anyone that I know personally. I think the Amish, some of the Amish might be more so than you. But even you depend upon others for a bunch of things, including making your guns. You don't make your own gun.
Yeah. We have the equipment to do it, but boy, it's hard. Yeah, it really is.
Oh my. Yes,
Dr. Shealy, I'm holding in my hand a 1,000 milligram caplet of vitamin C. And I've heard you many times talking about vitamin C and how important it is. Is there an amount of vitamin C that one might take that would be too much, and would it be dangerous? So, for example, if I were to take one of these per meal 3 times a day, would I be doing harm to myself if I don't have any upset stomach or diarrhea?
No, not at all. Most adults will tolerate up to 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C without problems. Now, some people will have it earlier than that. And, of course, Linus Pauling supposedly took 25 grams a day. He must have had a stainless steel gut, because I can't go much above 5 grams or 5,000 milligrams a day without getting diarrhea. The other other thing that's important, when you take an increase of vitamin C above 100 milligrams a day, however, you need increased amounts of B6. And that's an important correlation, because a very small percentage of people, maybe 1 in 2 or 300, will develop oxalate kidney stones if they take a larger dose of vitamin C without the increased B6.
Okay, and how much B6 would you recommend?
25 milligrams.
Okay, so one of these supplements that contains, 50 milligrams of B1, 50 milligrams of B2, 50 milligrams of B6, and 500 milligrams of B12. Take that, one of those, along with 3.
Yes, absolutely.
Vitamin C. What that? Okay. Now, so do you take the vitamin B6 with
the same time?
Okay.
Now remember, the so-called minimum daily requirement was 60 milligrams. Now, in my opinion, that has been exceeded for over 40 years because of pollution. There was a study done in the late 70s that showed that the optimal healthy range was at least 1,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C. If it was 1,000 milligrams in the 70s, it's probably 2,000 milligrams a day for optimal. I think all nutrients are 10 or more times what they were when those standards of minimum daily requirement or whatever were done 70 or 80 years ago.
And because of the toxicity that's around us, the light pollution, the air pollution, the water pollution, the chemicals in our food, all that combined, is it? Okay.
All combined.
Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back, right after these few short commercial announcements. Plus, Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. And if you'd like to get the same newsletters that I get multiple times per week, absolutely free, just go to normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. and you can sign up. Dr. Shealy, I'm looking at a post at thedailymail.co.uk. The title of the post is "The Modern World is Making Us Ill. How Our Senses Have Evolved is at odds with the demands of daily life. Primates' taste for sugar is one of the main reasons for the obesity epidemic. Indoor lifestyle and high computer use has created problems for our eyes. Polluted cities disrupt our sense of smell, and we no longer have to hunt for food, so we are becoming lazier and fatter." That's what this post headlines tells us. That is nothing different from what you've been saying for years, Dr. Shealy. As long as I've known you, you've been saying these things.
Well, I think we can truthfully say that, in my opinion, the beginning of badness was 1932, the year I was born, the height of the Depression. Mm-hmm. And the reason I call that the beginning of the badness, that was the beginning of the welfare state. Now, it wasn't that bad in 1932, but the leftistas have constantly increased that for now, 80 some odd years, in order to make people more and more and more and more dependent upon government and decrease their self-sufficiency, their independence, their personal responsibility. And when you decrease someone's personal responsibility, you decrease life.
Mm-hmm. This article goes on to say, gadgets, energy production, and processed foods are confusing our senses. As a result, people need glasses. There is an obesity epidemic, and pollution is stifling our sense of smell. And it goes on. Well, if you think about that, if you think about how dependent we are on these little gadgets, and if you think about the focal distance from our eye to the screen, we are focused near too often, too much time. Our eyes are focused closely, and we are losing our long-distance vision. And we weren't made to look at screens like this. We haven't evolved to that point yet, and it's damaging our eyes. And that's contained in many, many articles that I've read. Would you agree with that, Dr. Shealy?
Unequivocally. It's just remarkable. And, it's been going on, again, since the beginning of technology.
My dad used to say to me when I was reading a book when I was very young, he would say, this is how you hold the book. This is about the right distance from your eyes. The light should be over your left shoulder so that you don't have shadows on the page. And then every few minutes, look away from the page. Focus on something far away for several seconds, and then go back to reading for a few minutes, and then focus on something far away, and you will preserve the vision that you have for a longer time.
I think your father and I are of the same generation.
Yeah.
I like my light over my left shoulder.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to, be buried for an hour in a page without looking up, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And then this post goes on to say, sweets are available all the time, which is causing an obesity epidemic. Synthetic lighting means we're not able to develop such sharp vision. Looking at screens means we do not develop long-distance vision. And polluted cities disrupts our sense of smell. Put that all together and we've got what we've got. We've done it to ourselves. But we don't have to put up with all of it. We can fix some of it. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements right here on usaprepares.com. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, Senior USA Prepares Instructor. And if you'd like to call in, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Dr. Shealy, is there anything that you would like to share with us before I get into some of the other items that I have on?
Oh, let's go with your items.
Okay. Lithium orotate. You had mentioned that those who might be experiencing memory loss, early signs of Alzheimer's, early signs of dementia, might want to consider that. And I believe that you mentioned about 15 milligrams per day. Is that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you know, it is unequivocal. Without lithium, you cannot make the most essential, what I call bright-eyed, bushy-tailed wake-up hormone, serotonin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it protects the brain from damage, from stress, period. So that, and there's no good source of it in our food supply. So I've known this for at least 45 years, and I have taken a little lithium orotate all these years just because I think it's good for the brain.
Well, we followed your advice here at our household, and I've been giving it to my mom, about 15 milligrams a day with one of her meals, and it absolutely works. She is more bright-eyed, more bushy-tailed, she's got more energy. Everything, it's better. Everything seems to be better. And we thought we would do that because she's in her 90s, and why not? And why not all of us take it? So I just wanted to say that we tried what you said. It absolutely worked for us. Are there any concerns about taking it? And of course, what about taking it in greater quantities? I don't think you recommended doing that.
No. The only people whom I would recommend taking, let's say, 45 milligrams of lithium orotate are severe adult attention deficit disorder, ADHD, after age 20. But other than that, 15 or 20 milligrams for the average human is excellent.
Okay. So is there any concern about lithium orotate and operating machinery, farm machinery, driving a vehicle? Those of us who may be, working at a job where you're on a forklift or in a factory or, is there any concern about that?
No, I would say it improves your, safety, makes you more alert.
Okay. Lithium orotate. And how do you feel about, Dr. Shealy, instead of getting the tablets that are, 15 milligrams, getting the ones that are, closer to 100 milligrams and then cutting them carefully into, 8 pieces or so?
Actually, the only ones I've ever about are the 5 milligram little capsules.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd be a little bit careful about cutting things because I don't think you know how much you're getting.
Okay. How do you feel about aspirin as a medicine to take for those with heart issues? Once a day, 81 milligrams, like the equivalent of a baby aspirin.
I think for 99+% of people, it's better than anything else.
Do we know how that works, Dr. Shealy?
Well,
yes. It works?
We know that it decreases clotting.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot, not enough to make you bleed excessively, but it does decrease the tendency to clot. And, of course, having some little something in the small arteries to the heart that clots is the beginning of atherosclerosis.
Does taking an aspirin or a quarter of an aspirin or 325 milligrams is a typical aspirin size? Is that correct? I believe that's right.
A grain is roughly 60 milligrams, and or 60 or 64 milligrams. And so a half would be 30 milligrams. So
does this reverse hardening of the arteries, or does it just help us cope with
I don't think it reverses it. It helps prevent progression.
Okay. All right. So is there a situation where we should not take aspirin? I'm talking about the average guy and gal.
Well, when you are going to have surgery, you want to get off aspirin a week before because you don't want excess bleeding. And there a small percentage of people have extreme stomach sensitivity, and it can cause bleeding. That's very rare with that small dose, but it can happen.
Okay. And how would we know if we had bleeding? Are you talking about bleeding out of our fingers, our nostrils, or sinuses, or what would be bleeding?
Unfortunately, for people who are hypersensitive to aspirin, the bleeding is in the stomach or the intestines, and you don't know until it gets really pretty serious. In general, again, most people know that they might be sensitive to aspirin if they are. And even when I was in medical school, I was taught that average, way back in the 50s, 16,000 people a year died from taking aspirin. Now, that they never quantified how much aspirin those people were taking. And, some people take as much as 2 aspirin 4 times a day, and that is probably pretty excessive in almost anybody.
So, do you think that was true, Dr. Shealy? Do you that aspirin really can kill people?
Oh, yeah, and the killing was occasionally a severe allergic reaction, but most often for bleeding from the stomach.
Would that change stool color or urine color, the bleeding from the stomach?
Well, you have to get to a certain amount of bleeding, and it becomes black. The stool becomes black. But urine, no. Okay.
So if a person has black stool, Dr. Shealy, what is there a test that should be performed
yes.
soon? Or okay, what is that test?
That is, that go to the emergency room or to your physician right away.
Okay, very good. Let's continue on with a couple other things. I was reading a story about David Cassidy, and he was a heartthrob for young girls decades ago, and he was on stage performing. He's now 66 years old. He was performing in California, and he appeared to lose his balance, and he forgot his lyrics, and they were saying that this is related to dementia. I'm not trying to pick on him, but what I'm seeing is more and more discussion, more and more posts, more and more appearances of people who are having memory problems.
Now, I will give you odds that a majority of them are on a statin drug.
Okay. So there is a link between statin drugs and dementia. Is that what we're saying?
That's one of the strongest links that I know.
All right. So if that's the case, that memory loss, I don't know anybody who would appreciate memory loss. Really.
Well, maybe 1 or 2 wives.
That being the case, what would the alternative be to the statin drugs? Or just don't take them?
Well, don't take them, period, because there are many, many other complications as well. The alternative is a combination primarily of trimethylglycine, TMG, and lecithin granules. For the vast majority of people, those 2 safe supplements will handle your cholesterol very well and improve memory.
Okay, TMG, trimethylglycine, and in what amount, Dr. Shealy?
Depending upon weight, anybody over 130 or 40 pounds can take at least 4,000 milligrams a day, and anybody 150 or more can take 6,000 milligrams a day, spread out, with 3 meals. And it's extremely safe and extremely effective.
Okay. Is that something that is a supplement that you can buy without prescription?
Yes.
Okay, trimethylglycine. Those over 130 pounds, 4,000 milligrams a day, spread over 3 meals. And what was it for 6,000 milligrams? What was the weight?
Yeah, 150 and more.
150. Okay, greater than 150 pounds. 6,000 milligrams spread over 3 meals per day. Okay, and then the lecithin granules. How do we take that?
2 tablespoons, 2 rounded or heaping tablespoons in any kind of liquid. It mixes in well, has almost no taste.
Okay, is that once a day?
Twice.
Twice a day, 2 times per day. Okay, and Dr. Shealy, what do you think about eating beets, red beets, as a way of lowering blood pressure?
Well, in my opinion, the safest, simplest, best way is, of course, Kyani Nitro Extreme.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Second to that, maybe beets in large quantities, but also kale.
Okay, number 1, Kyani Nitro Extreme, and you can find that at Dr. Shealy's website, normshealy.com, and beets, red beets, and kale. So, we'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, I'm reading a post that talks about life expectancy and how it is predicted to increase. Life expectancy, those who are born, let's say, 2030 will be expected to live longer than now. And it shows that, and I find that kind of hard to believe. Looking at our diet, lack of exercise, pollution, dependence on electronic gadgets, I can't see how our life expectancy would increase. But here's what they're saying, that the countries with the greatest life expectancy will be South Korea, and this is in order. Number 1 would be South Korea, Australia, Switzerland, Canada, Netherlands, New Zealand, Spain, Ireland, Norway, Italy, Japan. Japan, I don't get that one at all with all the radioactivity that is being released there. Then Sweden, Denmark, United Kingdom, Slovenia, Germany, then Portugal, Austria. And then when we get down toward the bottom, we've got the United States, Hungary, Croatia, Poland, Mexico, Romania, Serbia. Do you think that life expectancy would be on the increase, Dr. Shealy, or are you with me thinking that maybe no?
Well, I can't speak for the rest of the world because I don't know enough. But I totally agree with you about Japan for certain. And I can't see how the United States people can increase life expectancy unless we have a marked turnaround in our habits.
Mm-hmm. Right. I
mean, with 2/3 of our people overweight and 1/3 just plain old fat, there's no way we can increase life expectancy.
Well, that's what I was thinking, was because in the United States we've become gadget dependent. We want to be able to tell our light switch to power up or power down now. We want to be, I mean, it's too much effort to walk over there to turn that light switch on or off. It's too much effort to get up out of that recliner to turn the TV volume up or down or change the channel. It's way too much work, it appears to be, in the United States to do those things. And I can see how the lack of exercise, the lack of wanting to do anything is making us, we're becoming more lazy, and we're eating junk food while we're reclining watching the blue lighted machine.
Right.
Okay. There was a post that I read that I found absolutely fascinating, in how smart babies are. And I find the same thing with some of the animals on our farm. And here's what happened. So this mother has a newborn, and she's breastfeeding the newborn. And the newborn prefers the left breast to the right breast. As a matter of fact, the newborn will not drink milk from his mother from the right breast. Turn to find out that the mother has a cancerous problem with the right breast. And the baby knew it, but the mother didn't know it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is fascinating.
Yep. And so I don't know the full results and whether the mother was treated, but let's hope that is the case. But isn't that interesting? So the baby's sense of maybe taste, maybe smell, was so accurate that it determined or he determined that he was not going to drink milk from that breast from his mother because he knew it didn't work for him. I thought that was a quite interesting article. Mercury in swordfish seems to be have twice the potential for causing neuron disease, the kind of thing that Stephen Hawking, Dr. Hawking, is suffering from. Mercury toxicity, Dr. Shealy, what are your concerns about that?
Well, obviously, in my opinion, the number one concern is the American Dental Association, which even today does not urge people to get rid of their silver mercury fillings. And secondly, of coal, is the release of mercury from coal burning.
All right, so if we drop a compact fluorescent light bulb in a classroom in a public training institution, the hazmat team will come out, okay, because they'll evacuate this school, and they've done that for dropping a compact fluorescent light with mercury, but yet we've got it in our mouth. Dr. Shealy, is it possible to eat too much watermelon?
Well, again, I think the intestines would tell you the number one problem of overeating. It does include stuff that can increase sort of laxative ability, but beyond that, no.
Okay, I was wondering about the urination of maybe minerals that the body might need by increasing urination by just eating watermelon.
It is certainly a diuretic, but in general, I don't think if you did it every day, yes, it could be a problem. Okay. But doing it occasionally, I don't think it would ever be a problem.
Okay. Do you have an update for us about your scalar energy room and what you're doing in that room and who's in there?
Well, we have 40 people who have enrolled in the study. They can come in anytime from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. They had a blood draw last week for adrenomedullin. You're going to spend a minimum of 36 hours over a 4-week period and then have another blood draw at the end of that time. We are expecting and hoping that the adrenomedullin will decrease, which is what is healthy.
Mm-hmm. And when you're in that room with experiencing this scalar energy effects, are you allowing that person to read, or what are the restrictions?
Read, but not use dumb phones.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So no electromagnetic devices are allowed in that room, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And so reading a book would be acceptable, but perfect. I guess not reading from a Kindle or an iPad, correct?
Right.
Okay. All right. Because that's what I was hoping to be able to do, catch up on some of the reading that I would like to do in a relaxed environment. So those who are in the room, Dr. Shealy, these 40, I guess all of them are not there at the same time, but are they encouraged to interact and chat with each other, or are they
I don't mind, acknowledgement that people are there, but we don't want people to carry on, long social conversations, because as you may know, talking raises blood pressure in a lot of people, even talking about good things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to be, undoing what we're doing by creating any stress.
Okay. So I plan to read some technical manuals. I don't think that they're going to be stressful. I just need to do that. Okay. And 36 hours, and that can be over several days or spread out. Okay. Over 4 weeks. Okay. And what comments have you heard so far that you'd like to share with us? What have people said as a result? Well, a couple of people
said they're sleeping a lot better already. Mm-hmm. And then the most common is, boy, is that relaxing.
Isn't that interesting? Okay. And what about, do you have any patients who have serious diseases that that you think there might be some positive effects in reversing?
Yeah, we don't have anybody with cancer that I know of, but we do have several people with significant high blood pressure or advanced coronary disease.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And have they made any comments have they been there long enough to establish that there's been a positive change?
Not long enough for that yet.
Okay. Dr. Shealy, I was reading, I read some strange things. And this is kind of nutty to me, but there used to be that people who had freckles when they were young would prefer that they didn't have freckles.
Right.
So they'd want to somehow remove those freckles. Well, it's been reversed. Now it seems that young people want freckles that don't have them. So what they're doing...
Yes.
yeah. As I'm sure you've figured out already, they're tattooing themselves and having freckles tattooed onto them. Now, for only $250, they can get semi-permanent freckles, and they. So obviously it's a dye that they're adding to their facial skin to have the look of freckles. The reason I'm mentioning this, first of all, go ahead.
I have to say, halitosis is better than no breath at all, but I'm not sure in this case.
Well, okay. So these young people are interested in tattooing freckles on, and there's semi-permanent ones. So if they change their mind after 3 years, and most of them will probably have faded away or been consumed by the body. The dyes will be consumed by the body. But this ties into millennials. And millennials are those born 1980 to 90, late 1990s. It's been said that they are the most narcissistic generation ever. And they even admit that they are narcissistic. And the evidence is clear, because before this generation, we didn't take pictures of ourselves and mail them from phone to phone or email them saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. We didn't do that. We were more modest. We were more reserved. Do you think that this most narcissistic generation, as evidenced by things like the selfies, things like tattooing freckles on their faces so they look at me now, don't I look great, is damaging to humanity?
Of course. It is the height of lack of conscientiousness.
Okay, I agree with that. I agree with that. And I was chatting with a young person, and we were going to go for a test drive. I helped fix the car, and we were going to go for a test drive, and it was cold. It was chilly out. And I remember this story. And I said to this young person, let's take the car for a test drive and see if it's fixed. Would you take off those flip-flops and put, socks and shoes on? And would you mind putting a coat on? Now, I'm thinking that that my repair is probably going to work. But, geez, we might be a couple miles out in the cold, and we might get stuck. And the last thing that I would want to be in is flip-flops and no coat. And this young person said, hey, I can make up my own decisions. I couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe it, Dr. Shealy. That's the kind of attitude I think that is dangerous.
I totally
Everything's
agree.
okay. Everything's okay. There are police out here who will help us. There are plenty of people who will help us if we get stuck. No problem. There are plenty of people who come to our rescue. And I'm thinking, if we get stuck, we're stuck, and there's nobody that's going to come and help us, because that's kind of the way I. And so I would want to have enough warmth and preparedness to survive a small problem like having the vehicle stuck and having cars whiz by and ignore us.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, are you reading and seeing stories like this, that we are becoming more dependent on the system, less prepared, less conscientious, less able to take care of ourselves? And we don't want to think about it. I mean, I do and you do, but are you seeing that in your circles and readings as well?
Absolutely. And that's what I meant by starting in 1932. The government increased and encouraged that kind of nonsense.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking this morning in the shower, that white noise of the shower head and the water. We have this, I mentioned many times, a high pressure, low volume shower head. So not much water comes out, but it's kind of like a high pressure washer, but not quite that high pressure, but kind of a mist comes out. And so in this white noise, I can think without, outside influences. And I was thinking about creativity. And I was wondering, is it possible to be creative when a person doesn't feel well? So when a person is ill, a person has a cold, a person has a stomach ache, is it possible to be creative? It seems hardly possible to me, even with a toothache.
Well, anything's possible. Is it likely? That's a better question.
There you go.
There's no question that when you're not well, you are not as creative.
So that lends us to, we need to be as healthy as we possibly can all the time so that we can be creative, solve the problems, the challenges of life. And that ties into your thought of detachment and
Exactly.
the lack of detachment making us ill at work, right? Ill from work, I should say. Ill from work. So on the way to work, we're in our vehicle and oh gosh, I don't want to go to work. Oh, the pressure, the boss is going to be standing on me. And then all day long, thinking about that. And then on the way home, taking the job home in your mind. And then coming home and snapping at the children and the spouse. Like, I had a really bad day, knock it off. Shortening of life, is that what we're talking about?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So detach. Somehow, not somehow. You've got the recipe at your website, right? How to detach?
You've got it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got
Optimal
it.
health.
Simple.
All right. Let's chat about that for a couple minutes when we come back. And also, I'd like to talk about allergy doctors back in the 1970s and flushing sinuses with saline solution and maybe even spraying iodine in the back of throats. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. NormShealy.com. NormShealy.com. So if you'd like to contact Dr. Shealy, you can send him an email at norm@normshealy.com. Dr. Shealy, detaching. We're talking about stress and the shortening of our lives, things at work that we can't control. What is the best, fastest, most effective way to detach from that so that we can live longer?
Well, my soul brother, Sergey, made up these wonderful little cards that we're going to put on our website soon. How am I feeling? Good, comfortable, relaxed, at peace? Yes. Well, then, detach. No. Can't fix it by taking action. Can I fix it by taking action? If yes, great, take action. No. Divorce it or accept it. In other words, if you can make a change and are willing to put the energy into it, phenomenal, go for it. If you can't, you have to take a deep breath and divorce and accept and forgive, which is ultimately going for sainthood. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm. And when I had dinner with you one evening, Dr. Sergey Sorin was with us, and he has one of the most stressful jobs on the planet as an emergency room doctor. And I asked him, about those patients who don't survive the emergency room and how often does that happen. And it happens so often that has got to be one of the most stressful jobs on the planet. Being
I
an
would
emergency
certainly
room
agree
doctor.
with you on that. No question about it. It's just one of those things you've got to do. Take a lot of,
Back in the 1970s, Dr. Shealy, there were some medical doctors who were treating asthma and allergies, and one of the things that they did was they would spray iodine. I believe it was iodine down the throats of patients with like with a little handheld machine that would, a little spray bulb. Have you heard of that as a treatment for, I don't know, sore throats and things?
Yes. I've heard of it. I'm a little bit concerned about it. For some people, that could cause a lot of spasm. And it could be a huge dose of iodine.
Yeah, and I was wondering if it was safe doing that.
Well,
because I don't see that being, yeah. How about this procedure that was used? For those with sinus infections, they would have the patient lie down on a table, and they would have this machine it was a vacuum machine, and they would connect this vacuum pump to low vacuum to this adapter that would fit the nostril, and then they would spray saline solution from one nostril, and it would go through the sinuses and be vacuumed out the other nostril. Have you ever seen or heard of that being done?
Oh, yeah. I think that goes back even to the days when I was in medical school.
Okay. Do you think that was a safe procedure, generally speaking?
In general, I'd think that was safe.
And I guess the plan was to rinse out the sinuses of the bacteria and the pus and whatever else was in there, right? And clear the way for healing.
Right, and to start by doing that, you're going to increase the blood flow because it'll be slightly irritating, and that gets the immune system a little more active.
And how about the poking with the equivalent of a Q-tip on the end of
no.
thin wire?
No, I don't recommend poking your ear or your nose with Q-tips.
Yeah. That was a procedure that was done back in the 70s to get through some of those blockages in the sinuses. Yep. Very good. Dr. Shealy, thank you so much for being with us today. And
my pleasure.
Class, thank you so much. Class, if you'd like to contact Dr. Shealy, you may. norm@normshealy.com. And if you'd like, you may request an appointment where you can arrange a chat via Skype for a worldwide connection to Dr. Shealy. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.